Well, welcome everybody. My name is John Amendola, and I'm with Virginia Asset Management here in Raleigh. Been here in the Raleigh area dealing with clients for 25 years in the financial services business. Mike Pugh, who is going to talk in the next couple minutes, is also with Virginia Asset Management, and he's been working with individuals over 25 years also in the financial services business. We wanted to welcome you. Quickly, I'm going to show you a little disclaimer that we have to put up that talks about it. So I'll give everybody a second to look at that. And then what we're going to talk about today, this is our contact information. If you guys have any questions afterward, feel free to email us or give us a call. But we're going to do a preview today of our road to retirement. It's a 5-star rated class that we've done at Wake Tech and NC State for quite a few years now, and it talks about from A to Z. It's going to talk about people that are contemplating retirement, either now or in the future. And just wanted to let you know, we're previewing Mike Pugh, who I just introduced, is going to preview the table of contents. However, this particular class, and I'll come back to this later, but this particular class will be presented at Wake Tech, and we typically do it at the Western Wake campus, but it'll be presented this coming January. The first 2 sessions are, and it's a Saturday class, and we've had a lot of success with those Saturday classes in the winter, is January 23rd. It's going to be online from 9 a.m. to 11:30, and then you can see the following week at January 30th. And then what we like to do is the last class is in person. The reason we do that is what we have found with a lot of individuals, they like to bring in questions and ask questions, and they're free to do that. So we've had a lot of success with this type of format. We would encourage you to take a look at that. It'll come up on the Western Wake site here probably in the next 2-3 weeks. But this is a precursor to that class that we do live. And like I said, it's 5-star rated, and a lot of people really enjoy it. With that being said, I'm going to introduce Mike Pugh, and Mike's going to go through and talk about exactly what we get into in our 3-day class. Feel free at any time to ask questions by raising your hand, and we can talk about those questions, but at any time, and then we'll also have a few minutes at the end if you have any specific questions. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce Mike Pugh.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. So as John just said, if you have a question, please ask us. That's what we're here for. So I want to walk you through kind of how we approach going through the whole retirement thought process and put it together in a class. And the reason why it's 3 days is we get pretty in depth in each of these issues, or these topics. So I'm going to walk you through those today, just kind of give you a feel for it. But we start off with, what is retirement? We get into how much does it cost, and then, obviously how to pay for it, and then investing. So in these early sessions, what we're really getting at the beginning is kind of what I determine is, how do I build a budget? I mean, how much money do I think I need, and what do I need it for? And so we spend a lot of time on that, and there's a lot of facets to go through beyond just basic living expenses into where you're going to live, because it could be cost of living differences, to am I going to rent, or am I going to own my house? Will I have debt or not? And then, what do I want to do with my time? And I'll get more into that in a minute, but those will lead you to a budget number. And then we really get into, how am I going to pay for it? So we've already got sources that we've saved for, whether it be Social Security, our 401ks, IRAs, and then just kind of talk about how those sources work together, because you got to worry about taxes, whether they're invested or they're paying you a dividend, to start figuring out how am I going to distribute money to myself to pay for my retirement. And then we spend a pretty much half a session or more on investing. So we feel like investing money once we've kind of earned what we need is a different process than when we were 20 years old trying to gain money. It's a different risk perspective to think through, and we kind of spend a good amount of time on that. Does anybody have any questions with any of that? I'm going to flip to the next session, but if you have a question with any of those or within those topics. So that's kind of gets you through the half, and then the second half kind of gets into a little, what I call something probably a little bit different than some other retirement classes, because we get into what we call preserve your health and wealth. So there we talk about if you're in pre-retirement, what kind of health insurance may be important for you, but then spend some time understanding how Medicare works, Part A and B, as well as the supplemental policies. What would they cover? What what will they not cover? But then we also get into the roles that life insurance may play in retirement. Because it really doesn't have a bigger role as it does when I'm 25 starting a family, but it could. And so we talk about all the potential uses for that. And it also does it have a role as if I'm pre-retired, but I got 5 more years to go. So thinking through those kind of things. And then the big one there is really where we spend most of the time on the health side is really talking about long-term care. Not so much about products, but the thought through the things to think through in terms of how much will I may need, what's going to happen if my wife needs to go into a nursing home? How am I going to pay for that? But what are the other resources out there? It's an ever evolving field, but it is the biggest threat to most of us in terms of what could damage our retirement plan. Is really not going to be the market. It's probably going to be a long-term care episode. The next thing that we really get into, spend some good time on is the distribution side, because it's totally different to accumulate money versus distributing money. So that gets back into time, back into your sources, and trying to figure out, okay, how will I build my paycheck now that I don't earn one? So, we spend some time with that, obviously get into required minimum distributions. That rule was changed with the Secure Act. It used to be 70 and a half. You had to take money from your 401k and retirement, IRAs if you're not working. But now it's 72. And then the last piece that we spend probably another, maybe not quite a half a session, but into the estate management side. And that really gets into, just talking about wills and powers of attorneys, the healthcare power of attorney, and some things to think through there. A lot of questions we typically get is, do I need a trust? Well, that depends, but we talk a lot about how a trust can be a play. And we can get even deeper depending on the questions we get from the class on the estate management side. But I think it's important there because, that's obviously whoever dies doesn't have the problem. The problem's left with those that survive. But if you haven't never really dealt with an estate before or helped someone close out an estate, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of things that can be done on the front end that makes it easy for the survivor. So we kind of get into that. So before I talk about one more thing, does anybody have any questions? I know you can raise your hand. I think is a way to handle that. So here's how I usually typically start our classes, because I think this is an important thing to think through as we approach retirement. And I typically don't like the word retirement because to me it brings so many different thoughts. And there's a exercise that I typically do here in class, but we won't do it today. But the thing that I like to really focus on is financial independence, because retirement means that, I'm retiring from something, but does it mean that I'm not going to go do something else from a work perspective or not? Whereas, financial independence means I can do what I want. If I want to work, I can. If I don't want to work, I can live as I want to live without having to work. So I think financial independence is kind of what we're all striving for, whether we decide to not be a financial planner anymore, but I'm going to maybe go teach classes at Wake Tech or NC State. That's a different discussion. Maybe that's going to be part of my pre-retirement plan, for a few years, and then maybe I will fully retire later. So those are the kind of things to think through. But the big issue that I tell most people that are starting to contemplate retirement that I found, and this has been my specialty, the reason why I got in this field 21 years ago, is the whole retirement side, is how are you going to spend your time? And I know that seems crazy because most of us that start thinking about retirement is like, oh, I got a lot of things I want to do with my time. But I will tell you that that's the biggest question. I know we got to have enough money to live on, but before the money comes, what am I going to do with my time? Because some answers to that question may mean I may need more money. Maybe I want to travel. Maybe I want to play more golf. Maybe I want to do more volunteering. But the success of your retirement is going to really be based on how you've addressed that question. And if you're married, it needs to be you need to think through it yourself, but then, and so does your spouse or your significant other, and then y'all need to talk about it together, because I know there's going to be some things that I want to do that she's not going to want to do, but there's going to be some things that we want to do together. But the time questions is a big one, because it's really hard, and I know it seems crazy to not have to work. Then what are you going to do with your time all day when it's already, for the most of your life, has been pre-planned for you? You had to get up to work, you had all the other chores to do on top of that. Now the work's gone, so that's 8 hours a day or more that's free. How are you going to fill that time? Does anybody have any questions with that? So the last thing that I want to get into just to give you a flavor for the class. So the one part that we get into right before we talk about investments is that we try to help you figure out how to estimate your retirement cost. So there's a way, I mean, there's a lot of good websites out there, and we'll give you those resources, but also there's a way to do this on Excel where you can at least get a number to kind of give you a good idea. Are you the ballpark? Meaning, I want 5,000 a month net to come in. Here's what I already got. Here's what my Social Security is. Am I close or not? And I think it's important to kind of start getting in that ballpark. If you're in your early 50s and you retire at 65, this would be a perfect exercise because that's kind of what you want to know right now. If you're closer to retirement, 5 years in or more, you probably want to get a little more precise. And there's a lot, like I said, a lot of good software that can help you do that. But is that, the answer to the question, do I have enough? And then the other question is, if I don't have enough, how much more do I need to save? How much more do I need to, what kind of rate of return do I need to try to earn to get there? So it really starts helping you paint a picture of, if I got an extra dollar next year, how's it help my plan? How should I employ that dollar towards my plan to kind of help me accomplish my financial goals? So I think that's obviously is a key piece. And I think understanding kind of where we are, 'cause it's amazing how many people don't. I mean, I know there's a couple commercials out there. ING has the "What's Your Number" commercial, but I don't think it's enough really talked about in terms of, what do I need? And I think I don't know what I need until I answer the time question. Then I kind of know the dollar amount. Then I got to figure out, okay, here's my things I have that can help me provide what I need. Is it enough? Am I short? And if I am, do I have enough time to make it up, or do I need to adjust my goal? So that's kind of how we answer that question. So anything on that front? The last thing, just to kind of delve into the estate a little bit more, I think the key thing in the estate management piece that shocks a lot of people is the first thing is you got to have a power of attorney. And maybe you already have, but if you haven't, that's something you need to go do. So someone that can make financial decisions for you when you can't. And that power of attorney needs to be what's called in the legal world a durable power of attorney, which means it's still good if you're mentally incapacitated. Because I could have a power of attorney on my wife or my kids right now, for example, which means I could sign for them right now. But if it's not a durable power of attorney, and my wife has a stroke, for example, and is deemed unable to think for herself, if my power of attorney is not durable, then I won't be able to do that. And so that's the big thing to think through. I was talking to a client last night that had a friend that just happened to where wife had a stroke. They had a lot of assets, and some families do. They'll put money in the husband's name, money in the wife's name. Well, he didn't have a power of attorney. He couldn't access her accounts. He couldn't access her checking account, any of her banking accounts, any of her investments, even her credit card. And so he's going to end up having to go to court. And the question then becomes, when you go to court, is if one of the kids are, if there's some division in the family and one of the kids isn't happy with you, they can contest it and just kind of tie it up to who's going to have control. So power of attorney is ultimately an important document to have. The second piece of that would be, the medical directive and who's going to be making the medical decision for you. And so we spend some time on that because depending on the family dynamics, that gets to be a tougher question to answer. Who do I really want? Should it be my spouse, or maybe one of my kids are better suited to be the medical power of attorney? But that's another big one. If you have some wishes that you want to make sure are followed at the end of life, then you want to make sure that you got the right person to make that happen. And then from there, we get into more of the basic wills, but we get into the trust. So I'm going to stop now because we're getting closer to time where I can open up for questions. Anybody got any questions on any topic that we've talked about today, or anything from the layout of the class, or a retirement related question? We'd be happy to answer that.
Okay, I see one hand up.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Jasmine. I'm just 26 at this point in life. But I wanted to know, at my age, what should I be looking to invest in? Because I mean, I don't know if I have a lot of time. I can't really wrap my head around this yet because it's so
Yeah.
much to me. It just looks so broad. But I do want to start preparing at my age. So what should I be looking for?
Well, the easy answer is any kind of investment, number one, just because in your case, you got time. You're not going to retire next year within the next 10 years. So investing money in like the stock market, for example, is nothing but a time game. The more time, the more risk you can take. So what you want to make sure that you start doing is invest. If you have a retirement plan at work, if not, do an IRA. But you can invest that in a growth stock or a growth mutual fund. The reason why, because you got time, so you can take the risk. But the most important thing is you want to get the power of compounding on your side. And what I mean by that is I put $1 in, my dollar earns 10 cents. Next year, I earn money on my dollar and I earn money on my 10 cents. You see what I'm saying? So it starts compounding over
Are
time.
you are you saying power of confidine?
Compounding.
Oh,
Compounding.
power of compounding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really the eighth wonder of the world. I mean, really, if you there's a great you probably can Google it about what happens if I invest a penny a day and earn a certain percentage. It's amazing how much money you can have in 30 years. Because the penny that I put in today earns something today. Tomorrow I put in another penny that earns something. The money I earned yesterday is earning something, and I'm earning something on the other penny. I mean, it just starts like a mountain. It just starts building for you. You want to have that on your side. That's why it's important to start investing as young as you can, because that's when you take full advantage of the power of compounding.
Okay. I'm going to Google that. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions?
Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Yes, I have a question. I am already 65 years old,
Okay.
but I've never opened an account for retirement. And I received a call from my previous job. They told me that I have some pension plan, which I didn't know before. So now I have two choices to take on the whole amount of money or to start with the IRA. Which is the best way I can do?
So let me make sure I understand. So you have a pension. They're telling you your two options are you can take the money out and put it in your pocket, or you can move the money to an IRA.
Yes. But the only problem is if I get the whole amount, they charge me 20% for the taxes.
Yeah, because any kind of retirement plan, 401ks or any of that, when you start taking money out of those type of plans and put them in your pocket, it's a mandatory withholding. Now, that doesn't mean you get the money back. I mean, it depends on what your taxes are. They withhold that just like you get when you work and you earn a paycheck, and they do tax withholding, the same thing. So when you file your taxes next year, if they withheld too much, you'll get it back. But you're right, they automatically hold 20%.
But
My question would be is, if you don't need all the money right now,
Mhm.
then why not roll it to an IRA? Because if you take it all out right now, forget the withholding. I mean, you're going to tax on it. So if you don't need that whole amount right now,
Mhm.
then why pay tax on it right now? If you move it to an IRA, it's not taxable to move it there, and then you can take out whatever you want from the IRA. If you don't want to take it out, you don't have to take it out. You will at 72 have to take something out, but you can take whatever you want out. A little bit this year, maybe more the next year. That way you can control when you distribute it, which also helps you control what the taxes will be.
I see. But in case I get the total amount, is it okay to invest some way?
Yeah, possibly, yes. I mean, it just kind of depends on, how much it is, how you need to use that money, for your well-being, for your retirement will determine, how to invest that money. I mean, it may be that way you can take a little risk. I mean, you wouldn't take a lot of risk, right? Because, I mean, you're going to be using it sooner rather than later to some degree. So,
Exactly.
so all those answers, all those questions would kind of help determine how to invest it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, Mike,
Yeah.
we're at the 5-minute point, but you do
Okay.
have one question in chat.
Okay.
Jenny's asking, I'm 57. I still have my money in company-sponsored 401k. Can I use you guys to help me move money to an IRA?
Yes, I mean, if the money's still in a company-sponsored plan, you're 57. If you're still working there, then you won't be able to move it. But if you're not working there, then yeah, you have the option to move it wherever you want. Here's the other caveat. So the only way to move money while I'm still working for my company, most plans allow you to do what's called an in-service distribution when you're 59 and a half. Even if you're still working, I can move my money out of the plan. Now, here's the other answer to the question. If you're 57, not working at the company anymore, and you're thinking about that you may need to access that money in the next year or two, then you're better off leaving the money in the 401k. Here's a little unknown rule with 401ks. If I leave my employer in the year I turn 55, so let's say I'm gonna be 55 in 2020, I work for IBM and I leave, and if I leave my money in the IBM plan, then I can access that money without the early withdrawal penalty. But if I move that money to an IRA or if I move that money to my new company 401k, I can't do that. So the answer is yes, but it kind of depends on what's going on, what may be best for you. Just if you want, our emails are on the screen. Just email one of us, or you can call us, but just email us, and we'll be happy to talk to you.
And Mike, she did note that she is still working with the company.
Okay. Okay.
Don't need to access money. I'm sorry, I'm working my screen here.
That's all right.
Don't need to access money. Thank you. I will email you.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect.
Okay, so you
All right.
still have 3 minutes. Any
Yeah,
other questions?
Yeah. Any other questions or? And just real quickly before we leave, at the bottom of the screen is when these classes will be taught again, which will be January 23rd, 30th, and the last class will be on February 6th, which that one will actually be in person. Typically, Saturdays are 2 days, not 3. We did 3 just because online we might not be able to cover as much content. And it's a little more bulky answering questions, which what we found teaching this class, it tends to be more questions, which is great, is why we're there.